They told you happiness was something you find, that if you just worked harder, earned more, became better, you'd finally feel whole. But you did all that, and you're still empty. Because happiness was never out there. It was in the one place you refused to look, yourself. This is not a motivational speech. This is the truth you've been avoiding. And it starts now. You were sold a story. They told you happiness was something you earned, something you achieved, something you unlocked after hitting the right milestones. Career, body, partner, house, freedom. So you chased it, and every time you got close, it moved. That's not failure. That's design. Because the happiness they sold you was never real. It was bait. A carrot on a stick to keep you running, spending, performing, and burning out in silence. You weren't chasing happiness. You were chasing distraction. Real happiness doesn't live in the next milestone. It doesn't wait at the finish line. It doesn't come from outside validation, social proof, or even love from others. It comes from one place: alignment. Alignment between who you are and how you live, between what you value and what you do, between your words and your actions. Most men never find it because they're too busy performing the life they think they should want. Let's be honest. How much of your life is actually yours? How much of it is built on what your parents expected, what your peers respect, what women reward, or what society applauds? Strip all that away. What's left? If the answer scares you, good. That fear is the door. The death of false happiness begins when you stop pretending that the script you've been following was ever written for your peace. It wasn't. It was written to keep you productive, consumable, and quiet. You've been living someone else's blueprint, and you've been wondering why you feel empty in a full life. This chapter isn't about what happiness is. It's about what it isn't. And once you see the difference, you can't unsee it. False happiness is external. It requires conditions. It says, I'll be happy when. Real happiness is internal. It requires nothing but honesty. Think about the last time you felt genuinely at peace. Not excited, not distracted, not high on dopamine or validation. Just still. Chance, Cesar. It wasn't when you made it. It was when you were alone, when you were aligned, when no one was watching and you were just being. That's the signal. Most men ignore it because it doesn't pay bills. It doesn't impress anyone. It doesn't make for a good Instagram story. But it's the only thing that matters. False happiness is loud. It needs witnesses. It craves applause. It dies in silence. Real happiness is quiet. It doesn't need to be seen. It doesn't demand proof. It lives in discipline, in solitude, in the small rituals that no one will ever know about. It lives in the morning you wake up early and don't tell anyone. In the book you finish that no one asks about. In the boundary you hold when it would be easier to fold. In the apology you make when your ego screams not to. These moments don't look like happiness. They look like work. But they are happiness, because happiness is not a feeling. It's a state of being that comes from doing hard things in alignment with who you are. The world doesn't want you to know this, because if you did, you'd stop chasing, you'd stop buying, you'd stop performing, you'd stop needing their approval. And a man who doesn't need approval is dangerous. Not to others, to the system, because he can't be controlled. So they keep you chasing new goals, new bodies, new partners, new cars, new status symbols, new distractions. And every time you catch one, the emptiness returns. Because the void was never about what you lacked. It was about what you were, a man living out of alignment. The death of false happiness is not a loss, it's a liberation. It's the moment you realize you don't need the world's permission to be at peace. You don't need the promotion, the validation, the relationship, the body, the house. You need alignment. And alignment starts with one question. Am I living my life or am I performing someone else's? Answer honestly. Then burn the scroll. I peeked. You're afraid of silence. Not the kind that comes from turning off your phone or sitting in a quiet room. You've done that. You can tolerate silence. What you're afraid of is what silence reveals. Because when the noise stops, when the distractions fade, the scrolling ends, the music cuts out, the notifications stop, you're left with one thing: yourself. And most men can't handle that. So they run. They fill every gap. Every moment of stillness becomes a moment to do something. Check the phone, turn on the TV, text someone, scroll, eat, work. Anything but sit with what's actually there. But here's the truth. Happiness will never exist in the noise. It lives in the silence you've been avoiding. The silence that asks, "Who are you?" when no one's watching. The silence that asks, "What do you actually want?" The silence that asks, "Why are you still running?" These questions don't have easy answers. That's why you avoid them. But avoiding them doesn't make them go away. It just makes them louder. Every distraction is a delay. Every escape is a debt. And the longer you run, the heavier the silence becomes when it finally catches you. And it will catch you. In the middle of the night when you can't sleep. In the quiet moments after the dopamine fades. In the car ride home when the music can't drown out the thoughts. In the mirror when you realize you don't recognize the man staring back. Silence is not the enemy. It's the teacher. It shows you what's real, what's broken, what's unresolved, what you've been carrying that was never yours to carry. It shows you the gap between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. And that gap is where the work begins. Most men fill their lives with noise to avoid this confrontation. They stay busy, productive, grinding, and distracted. They mistake motion for progress. They confuse exhaustion with purpose. But deep down, they know. They know they're avoiding so. Me thing. They just don't want to name it, because naming it means facing it. And facing it means changing. And changing means losing the identity they've built. Even if that identity is killing them. Silence strips all of that away. It doesn't care about your resume, your body, your income, your status, your followers. It only cares about the truth. And the truth is this. You've been running from yourself for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to just be. Not perform, not achieve, not prove. Just exist. Quietly, honestly, without an audience. That's the work. Not meditation apps or morning routines or journaling prompts, though those can help. The work is sitting with yourself without distraction and asking the hard questions. What am I actually feeling right now? What have I been avoiding? What am I afraid will happen if I stop performing? What do I actually want beyond what I've been told to want? These questions will make you uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is the signal that you're getting close to something real. Most men never get here because they never stop moving long enough to ask. They live their entire lives at arm's length from themselves. They die without ever meeting the man they could have been. Don't be that man. Silence will break you or build you, but it will not lie to you. And if you're serious about happiness, real happiness, not the performative kind, you have to be willing to sit in the silence and let it show you what's true. No distractions, no escapes, no excuses, just you. And the voice you've been drowning out. It's waiting, and it has something to tell you. You're carrying too much, not physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You're carrying relationships that died years ago, but you're too loyal or too guilty to bury. You're carrying grudges, resentments, old wounds that you've held on to like trophies, because letting them go would mean admitting they no longer serve you. You're carrying identities you've outgrown, versions of yourself that no longer fit, dreams you don't even want anymore but can't let go of because you've invested so much time pretending you did. You're carrying expectations from people who will never be satisfied. And all of it is dead weight. It's slowing you down. It's draining your energy. It's keeping you stuck in a life you don't even recognize as your own. And the worst part? You know it. You feel it every day. The heaviness, the exhaustion, the sense that you're running on fumes, not fuel. But you keep carrying it anyway, because letting go feels like failure, because cutting ties feels like cruelty, because walking away feels like weakness. But here's the truth. Holding on to what's dead is not loyalty, it's self-destruction. You cannot build a new life while carrying the rotting pieces of the old one. You have to let it die. Not with anger, not with drama, not with a big announcement or a theatrical exit. Just let it go. Stop watering dead plants. Stop fixing broken people who don't want to be fixed. Stop explaining yourself to people who've already decided who you are. Stop chasing closure from people who will never give it. Stop holding on to the past like it's going to change if you just think about it long enough. It won't. The past is done. It's not coming back. And the only power it has over you is the power you give it by refusing to let it die. This is one of the hardest lessons a man will ever learn. That love, loyalty, and commitment do not mean suffering in silence. They do not mean staying in toxic relationships because you made a promise. They do not mean holding on to friendships that drain you because we've been through a lot. They do not mean carrying someone else's emotional baggage because they refuse to carry it themselves. Real loyalty is to yourself first, because if you're broken, you can't help anyone else. If you're drained, you have nothing left to give. If you're stuck, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So cut the dead weight. Start with people. Look at the people in your life, not the people you wish were in your life, the people who are. Ask yourself, do they add to my life or do they drain it? Do they challenge me to be better or do they keep me small? Do they respect my boundaries or do they punish me for having them? Would I choose them today or am I only keeping them out of habit? Be honest, then act. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a dramatic goodbye. You just stop investing energy where it's not returned. You stop showing up for people who wouldn't cross the street for you. You stop answering every text, every call, every guilt trip. You create space, and you protect it. Next, cut the dead dreams. You have goals you don't even want anymore. Ambitions that made sense 5 years ago, but don't fit who you are now. Maybe it's the career path you chose because it sounded impressive. Maybe it's the body you're chasing because you think it'll finally make you feel worthy. Maybe it's the relationship you're forcing because you're afraid of starting over. Whatever it is, if it doesn't align with who you actually are, it's dead weight. Let it go. Not with shame, not with regret, just with honesty. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to admit that what you thought you wanted was just what you were told to want. And finally, cut the dead stories. The narratives you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, why things happened the way they did. The victim story, the hero story, the I'm broken story, the I'm not enough story. These stories are dead. They're not helping you. They're just keeping you stuck in a loop. You are not your past. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are what you choose to do now. And every day you wake up is a chance to choose differently. But you can't do that while you're still carrying the corpse of who you used to be. So cut it loose. Bury it. Burn it. Let it rot in the ground where it belongs. And then, walk forward. Light. Free. Alive. Because happiness isn't found in holding on. It's found in letting go. Motivation is a lie. Not because it doesn't exist. It does. But because it's unreliable. It comes and goes. It's a sugar rush, not fuel. You wake up motivated one day, fired up, ready to change your life. You set the goals, you make the plan, you feel unstoppable. 3 days later, you don't even remember why you started. That's not a character flaw, that's human nature. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't need you to be inspired. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It just shows up every single day, rain or shine, tired or rested, motivated or not. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. And if you're serious about happiness, you need to understand this. Happiness is not a feeling. It's a byproduct of discipline. Because happiness comes from alignment, and alignment comes from consistent action over time, not motivation, not inspiration, not passion. Discipline. Let's be real. Most men fail not because they lack talent, intelligence, or potential. They fail because they lack systems. They rely on willpower, on feeling like it, on waiting for the right time. And then life happens. Stress hits. Distractions pile up. The initial excitement fades, and they quit. Not because they're weak, but because they built their life on motivation instead of structure. Discipline is structure. It's the morning routine you follow even when you don't want to. It's the workout you complete even though you're tired. It's the boundary you hold even when it's uncomfortable. It's the no you say even when yes would be easier. It's the promise you keep to yourself when no one else is watching. That's the work. That's the bridge. And here's the part most men don't realize. Discipline is not restrictive. It's liberating. Because when you have discipline, you do. You have to rely on how you feel. You don't have to negotiate with yourself every morning. You don't have to waste energy deciding whether or not to do the thing. You just do it, because that's what you do. And over time, that consistency compounds. Small actions, repeated daily, become identity. The man who works out every day eventually becomes a man who is disciplined. The man who reads every morning eventually becomes a man who is educated. The man who shows up for himself every day eventually becomes a man who is reliable. Not because he's motivated, because he built systems that work when he's not. That's the difference. Most men are trying to change their lives with motivation, but motivation runs out. Discipline doesn't. So how do you build it? Start small, so small it feels stupid. Not, I'm going to work out every day for an hour. That's motivation talking. I'm going to do 10 push-ups every morning. That's discipline. Not, I'm going to read 50 books this year. That's ego talking. I'm going to read 5 pages every morning. That's discipline. Not, I'm going to quit all my bad habits. That's fantasy talking. I'm going to replace one bad habit with one good one. That's discipline. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to not break the chain. Because discipline is built through consistency, not intensity. It's better to do 10 push-ups every day for a year than to do 100 push-ups once and quit. It's better to read 5 pages every day than to binge a book once a month. It's better to show up tired than to not show up at all. Because every time you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you're building proof. Proof that you're the kind of man who keeps his word. Proof that you're the kind of man who doesn't quit when it gets hard. Proof that you're the kind of man who can be trusted by yourself. And that proof? That's confidence. That's self-respect. That's freedom. That's happiness. Not the performative kind. The real kind. The kind that lives in knowing you're becoming the man you said you'd be. So forget motivation. Build systems instead. Systems for your mornings. Systems for your health. Systems for your work. Systems for your relationships. Systems for your mind. And then trust the systems. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Because discipline is the bridge. And on the other side, a life you built. Not one you stumbled into. A life that's yours. Fully. Honestly. Quietly. And that's worth more than any fleeting moment of motivation could ever give you. You've become comfortable, and comfort is killing you. Not literally, not yet, but slowly, quietly, in ways you don't even notice until it's too late. You wake up in the same bed, you eat the same meals, you drive the same route, you have the same conversations, you live the same day over and over and call it a life. And somewhere deep down, you know. You're not growing. You're not challenged. You're not alive. You're just existing. This is what comfort does. It numbs you. It softens you. It makes you forget what you're capable of because you never have to prove it. You've traded your edge for ease, and now you wonder why you feel dull. Let's be clear. Comfort is not inherently bad. Rest is necessary. Stability is valuable. Peace is important. But there's a difference between resting and rotting. Resting is intentional. It's recovery. It's preparation for the next climb. Rotting is stagnation. It's avoidance. It's choosing safety over growth because growth is uncomfortable. And most men are rotting. They've built lives that require nothing of them. No risk, no challenge, no discomfort. They work jobs they hate but tolerate because they pay the bills. They stay in relationships that feel more like roommate arrangements than partnerships. They avoid hard conversations. They avoid conflict. They avoid anything that might disrupt the fragile peace they've built. And they call it maturity. But it's not maturity. It's cowardice dressed up as wisdom. Because maturity is knowing when to take risks, when to walk away, when to choose the hard path because it's the right one. Comfort teaches you the opposite. It teaches you to play it safe, to minimize risk, to never bet on yourself because losing is scarier than never trying. And the longer you live like this, the smaller you become. You stop dreaming. You stop trying. You stop believing you're capable of more. You accept mediocrity as reality, and you convince yourself that this is just how life is. But it's not. This is just how life is when you choose comfort over growth. Because here's the truth. Everything you want is on the other side of discomfort. The body you want? It's on the other side of the workouts you don't feel like doing. The relationship you want? It's on the other side of the hard conversations you're avoiding. The career you want? It's on the other side of the risks you're too afraid to take. The peace you want? It's on the other side of the silence you're running from. Comfort never gave anyone anything worth having. It just gave them safety. And safety, without purpose, is a cage. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Not happy, not content. Alive. Chances are, it wasn't when you were comfortable. It was when you were challenged. When you were scared. When you were doing something that demanded everything you had. That's where life lives. In the discomfort, in the risk, in the moments that make your heart pound and your hands shake. Not because you're reckless, but because you're awake. Comfort makes you sleep, and most men are walking around asleep. They're alive, but they're not living. They're breathing, but they're not feeling. They've insulated themselves from pain so well that they've also insulated themselves from joy. Because you can't selectively numb. You either feel it all, or you feel nothing. And comfort is the slow slide into feeling nothing. So what's the cost? The cost is your edge, your hunger, your fire. The cost is your potential, your growth, your evolution. The cost is you, the man you could have been, the life you could have built. And the worst part? You won't realize it until it's too late. Until you wake up at 40, 50, 60, and realize you spent your entire life playing it safe. You never took the leap. You never risked failure. You never bet on yourself. You just existed. And now you're staring at the end, wondering where it all went. Don't be that man. Start embracing discomfort, intentionally. Do the hard thing, the scary thing, the thing that makes you question whether you can. Sign up for the fight, take the trip, have the conversation, make the move, start the business, leave the job, end the relationship, begin the one. Whatever it is that you've been avoiding because it's uncomfortable, do it. Not recklessly, but courageously. Because courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of it. And happiness, real happiness, is not found in comfort. It's found in the growth that comes from choosing discomfort. It's found in the man you become when you stop hiding from what's hard. So get uncomfortable. Stay uncomfortable. Build a life that demands more of you. Because you don't want ease. You want aliveness. And aliveness costs. But it's worth every bit of discomfort. You talk too much. Not to others, to yourself. You announce your goals, you share your plans, you tell everyone what you're going to do, and then you don't do it. Because the announcement gave you the dopamine hit you were looking for, the validation, the attention, the sense that you're someone who does things. But you didn't do the thing, you just talked about it. And now the motivation is gone, because you already got the reward without doing the work. This is the trap of living out loud. You think you're building accountability, you think you're manifesting, you think you're putting positive energy into the world. But really, you're just performing. And performance is exhausting, because it's never about the work, it's about the applause. Real men build in silence. Not because they're secretive, not because they're insecure, but because they understand something most men don't. The work is the reward, not the praise, not the recognition, not the validation. The work itself, the quiet hours, the unseen reps, the small improvements no one will ever notice, the discipline that requires no audience. That's where happiness lives. Not in the announcement, not in the performance, in the doing. And the doing doesn't need witnesses. Think about the men you respect, the ones who've actually built something. They didn't announce it, they didn't post about it, they didn't seek validation every step of the way. They just built, quietly, consistently, without fanfare. And one day, the world noticed. Not because they demanded attention, but because the work was undeniable. That's the difference. Loud men seek validation. Quiet men earn respect. Loud men announce their intentions. Quiet men execute them. Loud men need the world to know they're working. Quiet men don't care who knows. They're working anyway. And here's the truth. The world doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your results. Your discipline doesn't need an audience. Your transformation doesn't need a timeline. Your growth doesn't need a stage. It just needs you, showing up, every day, without applause. Because applause is temporary. But the man you become in the silence, that's permanent. So stop announcing. Stop posting every workout, every book, every lesson, every realization. Stop performing your growth for strangers on the internet. Just grow. In private, in silence, in the dark, where no one's watching, where no one's validating, where you're the only one who knows if you showed up or quit. That's the work. And it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, it's not shareable. But it's real. And over time, the results will speak louder than any announcement ever could. You'll move differently, speak differently, carry yourself differently. People will notice. Not because you told them to, but because you became someone worth noticing. And that's the difference between performance and transformation. Performance is loud and temporary. Transformation is silent and permanent. One seeks validation, the other earns respect. One craves attention, the other commands it without asking. So build in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're focused. Not because you're ashamed, but because you're disciplined. Not because you don't want recognition, but because you don't need it. Because the work is the reward. And the man you're becoming, he doesn't need to announce himself. He just shows up, fully, quietly, undeniably. And when he does, the world listens. You think happiness is a feeling. It's not. Happiness is not the rush you get from a win. It's not the high of a new relationship. It's not the dopamine hit from a like, a compliment, or a moment of validation. Those are feelings, and feelings are temporary. They come, they go, they lie to you. They trick you into thinking you're whole when you're just distracted. Happiness is something else entirely. It's not a feeling, it's a state of being that exists regardless of how you feel. It's the deep, quiet knowledge that you're aligned, that you're doing the work, that you're becoming the man you're supposed to be. It's peace, and peace is not the absence of chaos, it's your presence within it. Think about it. The world is always going to be chaotic. People will disappoint you, plans will fall apart, life will throw curveballs, stress will pile up, uncertainty will loom. That's not going to change. But your response to it? That can change. And that's where happiness lives, not in controlling the chaos, but in learning how to stand steady in the middle of it. Most men think they'll be happy when things calm down, when they get the promotion, when they find the partner, when they lose the weight, when they finally make it. But it doesn't work like that. Because happiness is not a destination, it's a skill. It's the skill of staying grounded when everything around you is shifting. It's the skill of holding your center when the world is pulling you in every direction. It's the skill of being present when your mind is screaming at you to escape. And like any skill, it's built through practice, not through wishful thinking, not through chasing feelings, through discipline. Let's be honest. You've been chasing feelings your entire life. You've been chasing the high, the rush, the validation, the distraction. And every time you caught it, it faded. And you were left empty again. That's not failure. That's the nature of feelings. They're not designed to last. They're designed to signal, to alert, to move you toward or away from something. But they're not designed to sustain you. Peace is. And peace is not found in the absence of struggle. It's found in the acceptance of it. It's found in the understanding that life is hard, that pain is inevitable, that loss is part of the deal, and that you don't need life to be easy to be okay. You just need to be present, grounded, aligned. That's the shift. Stop chasing happiness. Start building peace. Stop waiting for life to calm down. Start learning how to be calm within life. Stop seeking the next high. Start building the foundation that holds you steady when the high fades. Because happiness is not about feeling good all the time. It's about feeling whole. And wholeness comes from alignment, from discipline, from doing the work even when you don't feel like it, from showing up for yourself when no one else is watching, from keeping your word to yourself even when it's inconvenient, from building a life that reflects your values, not your impulses. That's the path. And it's not exciting, it's not glamorous, it's not shareable, but it's real, and over time, it compounds. That's peace. And peace is the only form of happiness that lasts, because it doesn't depend on external conditions. It doesn't require validation. It doesn't need things to go your way. It just is. It's the steady heartbeat beneath the noise, the calm center in the storm, the unshakable foundation you built when no one was watching. Most men never find it because they're too busy chasing feelings. They're addicted to the highs, the excitement, the newness, the rush. And when the rush fades, and it always fades, they panic. They think something's wrong. They think they've lost their happiness. But they never had it to begin with. And they just had a feeling, and feelings pass. Peace doesn't. Peace is what remains when everything else is stripped away. When the relationship ends, when the job is lost, when the goal isn't reached, when the validation stops coming. Peace is what's left when you're alone with yourself and you can honestly say, I'm okay. Not because everything's perfect, but because you are. Because you've done the work, you've faced yourself, you've cut the dead weight, you've built in silence, you've embraced discomfort, you've stayed disciplined, you've become someone you respect. And that respect, that's the foundation of peace. Because when you respect yourself, you don't need the world to validate you. When you trust yourself, you don't need certainty to move forward. When you're aligned, you don't need external conditions to feel whole. You just are. And that feeling, that deep, quiet, unshakable sense of being okay, that's happiness. Not the Instagram version, not the highlight reel, not the performance. The real version. The kind that lives in your chest when you're alone at night. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. The kind that doesn't fade when the dopamine does. The kind that says, I built this, and no one can take it from me. That's the work. And it's not easy. It's not quick. It's not glamorous. But it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, feelings will betray you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. Life will get hard. But if you've built peace, if you've built a foundation that can't be shaken, you'll be okay. Not because nothing bad happens, but because you're strong enough to handle it when it does. And that strength? That's not a feeling. That's a state of being. That's happiness. So stop chasing the high. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop thinking happiness is something that happens to you. It's not. Happiness is something you build, quietly, consistently, without applause. And it starts with one decision: to stop performing and start being, to stop chasing and start building, to stop seeking validation and start earning self-respect, to stop waiting for life to give you peace and start creating it yourself. That's the path, and it's waiting for you. Not out there, in here, in the silence you've been avoiding, in the discomfort you've been running from, in the discipline you've been delaying, in the work that no one sees but you. That's where happiness lives, and once you find it, once you build it, no one can take it from you. Not the world, not your circumstances, not your past, because it's yours, fully, honestly, permanently. And that's the only kind of happiness that matters. You're not who you were. Let that sink in. The man you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10, he's gone. Not because you forgot him, but because you outgrew him. The choices you made, the pain you survived, the lessons you learned, they changed you. And that's not a loss. That's evolution. But here's where most men get stuck. They keep living like they're still that person. They carry the identity, the shame, the limitations, the story. They let their past define their present, and their present define their future. And they wonder why they feel stuck. Because you can't become someone new while clinging to who you were. You have to let him go. Not with regret, not with shame, but with gratitude. Because that version of you did the best he could with what he had. He survived. He learned. He brought you here. But his job is done. And now it's time for the next version. The man you're becoming. Not the man the world expects you to be. Not the man you think you should be, but the man you choose to be. That's the work. Every day you wake up with a choice: to stay the same or to evolve, to repeat the patterns or to break them, to live out of habit or to live with intention. Most men choose comfort. They choose the familiar. They choose the version of themselves they've always known because change is terrifying. But you're not most men. You're here, reading this, listening, thinking, which means you're already awake. And once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. You can only move forward. So who is the man you're becoming? Not in theory, not in fantasy, in reality. What does he do differently? How does he speak? How does he move? How does he respond to stress, to failure, to success? What does he value? What does he protect? What does he refuse to tolerate? How does he treat himself when no one's watching? These aren't abstract questions. These are the questions that define your transformation. Because transformation is not about big dramatic changes. It's about small, consistent choices that align with the man you're choosing to become. It's about choosing discipline over distraction. It's about choosing honesty over performance. It's about choosing growth over comfort. It's about choosing presence over avoidance every single day. And here's the truth. You will fail. You will slip. You will fall back into old patterns. That's not failure. That's being human. The difference is this. The man you're becoming doesn't quit when he fails. He adjusts. He learns. He gets back up. Because he's not chasing perfection. He's chasing progress. And progress is not linear. It's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's falling and rising and falling again. But every time you rise, you're stronger. Every time you choose differently, you're closer. Every time you show up for yourself, you're becoming. And that's the work, not the destination, the becoming. Because the man you're becoming is not a fixed point. He's a direction toward alignment, toward peace, toward strength, toward wholeness. And the beautiful thing, you're already on the path. Every hard choice you made, every boundary you held, every time you chose yourself when it would have been easier not to. You were becoming, and you still are. So stop judging yourself for not being there yet. You're not supposed to be there yet. You're supposed to be here, in the work, in the process, in the becoming. And here's the final truth. The man you're becoming will be tested. Life will throw everything at you to see if you're real. It will test your discipline, your boundaries, your values, your peace. It will bring back old temptations, old relationships, old patterns. It will offer you shortcuts, distractions, escapes. And in those moments, you'll have to choose who you were or who you're becoming, the old version or the new one, the easy path or the right one. That's the test. And you'll face it over and over, not once, not twice, but every single day for the rest of your life. Because transformation is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice. It's waking up and choosing to be the man you said you'd be, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's when it counts. That's when you prove to yourself that you're not the same man you were. That's when you become. So here's your reminder. You are not defined by who you were. You are defined by who you choose to be today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today, right now, in this moment. Who are you choosing to be? The man who talks about change, or the man who becomes it? The man who waits for the right time, or the man who makes this the right time? The man who stays stuck, or the man who breaks free? You already know the answer. You've always known. You just needed permission to become him. Consider this your permission. Not from me, from yourself. The man you're becoming is waiting. And he's been waiting long enough. It's time. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The work doesn't stop when the audiobook ends. It starts when you close your eyes tonight and decide, tomorrow, I choose differently. Tomorrow, I become. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect moment. You just need to start. Build in silence. Cut the dead weight. Choose discipline over distraction. And become the man you've been running from your entire life. He's waiting, and he's ready. Welcome home.